Hey guys, my name's Bex. Welcome to Tiny Fibre Studio. This is episode 13 of a podcast about knitting, spinning, and specifically about me trying to become more purposeful in my spinning. If you are a returning viewer, thank you very much for coming back. It's good to see you. And if you're not, if this is the first time that you've seen an episode, welcome. I hope you find it useful. One thing you should know about today's podcast, I have recorded this twice already. The first time I had the cats in the room. I will put some outtakes here so you can see what kind of chaos they caused. It was really distracting. I just couldn't keep track of what I was saying, what I'd already said, what I was trying to say. It was awful. So the cats have been banished back to their room just for half an hour or so while I record this. And the second time I had totally forgotten to clear the audio off the card in my audio recorder. So I had precisely 12 minutes of audio, also not useful. So anyway, here we are. Finally, I'm back. I have my tea. We're recording. I've got audio recording. It's all good. Everything should be fine. I have a few things that I want to talk about in today's episode, and the first thing is some project status updates. First thing is my cowl, which I have really not done very much on since I last recorded. You can see there is a little bit over 2 stripes done since the latest progress marker went in. So yeah, haven't really done very much with that. I might possibly take that to knitting/spinning group tomorrow just to try and get a little bit more of it done. Because it's fairly straightforward and easy to knit on in company. So that's that one. The second thing is spinning. So last time I saw you, I had finished spinning this, but it was soaking, or it was just starting to dry off after its soak. I did say that I would put it back through the wheel and take some twist out if there was too much twist. There was too much twist. So I finished letting it dry most of the way, and then I sent it back through the mini spinner, just taking some twist out of it. I actually managed to get it set up so that I had my Swift on the sofa to this side of me. I had my mini spinner in front of me, and pretty much all I was doing was supervising because the mini spinner was able to feed it in itself, take the twist out. The Swift was just going round and round. And I was literally just there making sure that it was still feeding into the mini spinner okay. It has taken a pretty reasonable amount of twist out, and I am now pretty happy with this yarn as a spin. It's merino, singles. I haven't looked at twist per inch or anything just yet. It's roughly fingering weight. It did mean me having to get used to spinning fingering weight again because most of the stuff I've done recently has been lace weight. So my fingers needed to kind of get reacclimatized to spinning a little bit thicker. I've been finding it a million times easier to spin thicker using short backward draw than short forward draw. And my theory is that that's because your front hand is able to actually feel the thickness of the yarn as opposed to feeling the thickness of the fibre. If you think about it, when you're spinning short forward draw, your front hand really only feels the fibre in the drafting triangle. It doesn't really feel the actual yarn that you're producing. In short backward draw, it kind of does, because it's your backhand that's taking care of the drafting triangle, kind of. I don't know. I think that's my theory. It works for me, and it's definitely allowing me to spin quite a bit thicker. Then I worked on the second colour, so those are the 2 colours that I have done so far. This was fibre that I hand dyed myself. Pretty happy with that. I think I did have a few moments where I was kind of spinning a little bit skinnier on this one, but I'm sure it'll be fine, it will work out in the end. And then I'm currently spinning this colour. So once they are all together, they are going to be a Doodler shawl by Stephen West, and I'll show you the progress on the mini spinner itself. So that's where we're up to on the mini spinner. I'm using the woolly winder. I've got it on, you can see on the front there. I've got it at probably about 9:30 on the dial. Yeah, I think it's actually coming up pretty well. I'm pretty happy with that. So one little idea that I had that I wanted to float by you is maybe doing a spin along, but not in the same way as I did last year. If you were a viewer last year, you will know that I started doing a spin along and it was like a sample along. So you would do a sample of a particular style or a particular fibre or whatever. With all the other stuff that was going on, that got far too much for me, and I just found it difficult to keep up with what was happening on Ravelry and what was happening on YouTube. So I thought it might be kind of interesting to do some YouTube live episodes where it's literally just a spin along. So I will be spinning, I will be happy to talk about what I'm spinning and how I'm spinning it and any other questions and stuff that you guys have as we go along. And it would be lovely to know that there are other people around the world who are spinning with me at the same time. I will probably have a chance to do that early next week. So what I would love is if you would drop me a comment and let me know what kind of times, if you can translate to GMT, that'd be fantastic. What sort of times are good for you? Obviously, I can't promise to please everybody because I live in the UK. I know a lot of you live in the US and Canada. I can't promise to keep your time, but I will try to make it so that, you know, the broadcasts at least kind of overlap with a couple of times that might be good for people. Also, if you are interested in seeing those live broadcasts, please make sure that you subscribe and that you have notifications switched on, because if you don't, you might miss the live broadcasts. What I'll then do is I'll put those broadcasts up as videos that people can watch afterwards. So if you miss the live broadcast, it will be available, but it would be really cool if we could try and get people involved with the live broadcasts as they're actually happening. So let me know what you think. It's something that I would love to do because I sometimes feel like other spinners are a long way away, and it would just be nice to kind of feel like we're all sitting there doing something together. You might remember that in the last episode I mentioned that that singles project was originally intended to be a 2-ply, and that I'd kind of started spinning it and realised how quickly singles works and thought, oh, this is quite good, I'm just going to carry on spinning it as singles. I wanted to mention that I did reference a lot from the winter 2015 issue of PLY magazine, which was the singles issue. Because one of the things that I find really useful about PLY magazine as a reference is that I have a pretty decent library of modern spinning books. Things like the Spinner's Book of Yarn Design, Fleece and Fibre Sourcebook, Yarnitecture. I have had the Intentional Spinner before now, various interweave videos and stuff like that. But because quite a lot of those are general resources, you sometimes feel like they're sort of skimming the surface of the information that they could tell you because they've got a word count to stick to. What I really like about PLY magazine is that they've got an issue to dedicate to a particular topic. So for example, in the singles issue, there were several articles that I found really, really useful, but one in particular was this one called Bias Point. If you've ever thought about spinning singles and you've ever looked into it, one of the things that you'll come up with is people saying, oh, you've got to be really careful about how much twist you put into a singles yarn because you don't want it biasing. Biasing basically means that if there's too much twist, too much energy in a singles yarn, when you knit it in just plain stocking stitch, it might kind of slant the sample, kind of like these two. So, you know, one slanted, one not slanted. Research for this because she created a table. I'm just going to give you a quick kind of flash of it because, you know, copyright, but a huge table of all the information about, you know, how much how many wraps per inch her samples were, what the fresh ply twist was, what the ply back twist angle was after it was set, everything, and how much it biased. It's a really, really useful reference. So if you are spinning singles, that is Ply Magazine Winter 2015. I am very probably going to get the complete ply back issues in digital format. I already have a lot of issues of the physical format, but I'm always a little bit wary with magazines because they do tend to be something that ends up taking up a lot of space. And my house isn't small, but I'm really conscious that everything is going to have a place in the house. Otherwise, it's all going to look a mess. And I just want to try and regain as much space as I can. So I will probably do that at some stage, especially because the most recent issue is the planning issue. And there's an article that I've been hearing a lot about from a lot of different people, actually, loads of different sources. People have been saying that particular article about replicating a commercial yarn is a really good, really interesting one. Speaking of classes, I got to go to a guild meeting this month, which is quite exciting because I don't normally get to go. It's kind of difficult for me to get to a lot of the guilds around here because a lot of them require you to have a car to be able to get there, and I don't. I choose not to have a car because 99% of the time I don't need one. But it's occasions like that where actually car kind of comes in useful. So thank you very much, Sinead, who gave me a lift to the guild meeting the other day. I had been to this guild once before, a couple of years ago, and I remember it being a whole lot smaller. I think they were meeting in a different location. I'm pretty sure they were in a church hall. They were in like a little community centre this time. And it was just really nice to be among so many spinners and so many different wheels as well. I mean, you guys might have noticed that I do kind of like the more technical, gadgety side of spinning. I hold my hands up, guilty as charged. I do like a good spinning wheel and I like different spinning wheels. There were so many people there and so many different wheels. Some antiques, some Magicraft, some Shacked, some Ashfords, some Lendrums, quite a few Lendrums. But there was a wide variety. It wasn't like everybody kind of gravitated to the same kind of wheel. There was even a Babe there, one of the PVC piping ones. That was kind of cool. So yeah, it was good to be there, good to be amongst lots of other spinners. The class or the sort of demonstration was Amanda from Manda Crafts. She was doing spinning from the point. So she had bought in her great wheel and a Pakistani version of a great wheel, like a smaller version but accelerated, I think. Anna Chaka, she gave this great demo on how to spin. She was spinning cotton, but you know, generally how to spin from the point. I spun some samples, little teeny weeny samples with nowhere near enough twist in them, because if I take this one as an example, it just kind of falls apart because I didn't put very much twist in. The thing that I learned from that class was you kind of have to take it in two stages. So you first of all draft back with a bit of twist going in, and then you put loads of twist in, and that's kind of the second part of it. I didn't put enough twist in. I was a bit impatient. I had taken the Quill for my mini spinner. So for those of you who don't know, this is the Quill that you can get for the mini spinner. So this bit just goes into the orifice, kind of like the orifice reducers if you have any of those. And basically this is designed so that you can either use it as a quill, so in other words spinning from the point, or as a bobbin winder. Either way, you would pop this bit on first. That goes on and it just Fits onto like a little O-ring there. I'm not going to put it on all the way, but you get the idea. And then you have two little sort of orangey red O-rings, which can either be used to help hold a bobbin in place, or you could just frankly take them off if you didn't need them. And I was spinning off the point of that relatively successfully, I felt. I did also have a go at spinning on a Russian spindle. Yeah, not good, not good. I think my coordination with a Russian spindle requires some work because it was terrible. It was so bad. There's just so much going on. You've got to kind of flick the spindle and get it settled in the bowl correctly, and then have to draft off at the same time. Then you just like there's I don't know, so much stuff going on. I was quite happy to just stick with the mini spinner and the quill. There are advantages and disadvantages to the mini spinner with the quill when it comes to spinning from the point. I think if I was doing it again, the thing that I'd kind of picked up on in that brief bit of practice that I had was to use my right hand, my dominant hand, to control the fibre, and use my non-dominant hand to control the speed of the wheel. Because when you're doing that stage one of getting the draft right, you don't need a huge amount of twist, but then you need lots more twist when you're in the second stage where you're putting the twist in. Or you could just keep it the same speed, but hold your hand there longer in the second stage. The mini spinner potentially has a lot of advantage there because you can turn the speed right the way up and you're not having to treadle like crazy to get that moving. The motor's just doing all the work for you. The disadvantage is the fact that you have to change the speed because you wouldn't want so much twist going in when you're doing the drafting bit. I hope that makes sense. I will try and do a demo at some point of spinning on the quill so that you can see what I mean. It might make a little bit more sense that way. Incidentally, thank you very, very much to everybody who came over to me at that guild meeting and said hi because they'd seen the YouTube channel. It's always just really nice to put names to faces or to just know that there are actually people out there watching the videos. The channel just hit 800 subscribers, so I think I'm doing something right. But it's just good to actually be in the real world and have people say, yeah, I watch it, I think it's cool. So thank you very much for that. The guild meeting was also the first opportunity that I'd had to use the eBags crew cooler, and it works really, really well for that particular purpose. So I was able to fit it into the front bag of my Brompton folding bike, ride to the bus stop where I was meeting Sinead, and then fold the bike up, put it in the boot of her car. We went off to the guild and then we did the reverse on the way back. It's great. It fitted everything that I needed it to fit. Yeah, generally, thumbs up for the eBags crew cooler. It doesn't replace the Zuka for me. I will still be using the Zuka under certain circumstances as well. And actually the Zuka is what I put my mini spinner on when I'm spinning at home. Especially at the moment, cats flying around all over the place. It's kind of handy to have somewhere to stash the mini spinner away at a moment's notice. At that guild meeting, there was a lady who was a friend of the lady that I bought my Shack sidekick from. And she said, oh yeah, she mentioned that you were interested in getting a mini spinner pro. So we got talking and she loves hers. Don't you just hate it when people are able to kind of talk you into something that you'd already talked yourself into? So consequently, I think the Mini Spinner Pro probably is something that I will end up getting at some stage. It's not going to happen right now for a number of different reasons. There's some expensive stuff coming up, but also because I only bought my house 4 months ago and I need to feel like I've got a decent contingency fund in place. And currently there's probably about 2/3 of what I would like to have as contingency. So until I've got that, I don't really want to think about, you know, spending huge amounts more money, but it probably is something that will happen. When I do, I will be selling the Mini Spinner Classic to put the money towards the Pro. The big attraction of the Pro for me is being able to use that LCD, being able to make records where I'm actually able to say this is the number of revolutions per minute and the amount of torque. So I think from a technical point of view, being able to both record and then reference that information when I'm trying to spin something similar again would be really, really useful. I've also had a few moments, not very many, but a few moments where I've been spinning that singles and I've just been aware that the motor's under a little bit more pressure, and very occasionally it's stopped because I've had too much brake tension on with too low a speed. So the Mini Spinner Pro would definitely help that, but when I do sell the Classic, I think I'll probably try and sell that as a whole package. So Mini Spinner, all 3 flyers, the bobbins that I already have for it, plus the bobbins that I will be getting with the Pro, because I don't use any of the Mini Spinner bobbins themselves. I use the Acreworks ones all the time. But before we get to that, there are expensive things on the horizon. Edinburgh Yarn Festival is coming up for a start, and I do plan to go again this year. The plan is probably, you've guessed it, to do that crazy coach journey again. For those who weren't watching the podcast last year, I did kind of a crazy journey. I did the overnight coach from Devon to London, and then had a day in London, and then did the overnight coach from London to Edinburgh. So 2 nights worth of travel. The great thing is you don't have to pay for extra hotels, and the coach is really cheap. So I'm probably going to do a similar thing this time round. Obviously this time I've got the cats to think about. I will be having friends and family come round to check on them, play with them, make sure they're fed and got water and everything, clean litter trays, all that fun stuff. But I don't want to be away for any longer than is absolutely necessary. And to be honest, if I look at things like flights, it doesn't really make that much more difference to fly up and down or to take the coach. I would still kind of have to be away for the same length of time. It's just that I would have to pay for hotels in Edinburgh for more nights if I was flying. So I think what I would probably do is take the coach up to London from Devon in the afternoon, have maybe a couple of hours in London and then get straight onto the coach. So it'll be a slightly shorter journey on that end, and then do the same coming back. But I will have 2 full days at Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year. Yeah, if I can save some transport and hotel fees and give that money instead to all the wonderful indie dyers who've worked so hard towards Edinburgh, then why would I not do that? So I hope I will get to see some of you there. I don't know if I'm going to get to record another podcast episode in between now and then. I hope I do, but if not, if you see me at Edinburgh, please come and say hi. I'd love to, again, put some names to faces and meet some real life people who watch this channel. So the other bit of news this week concerns a blanket. This blanket, in fact. You might notice that it has one edge that has rib, and it has one edge that does not have rib. That is because one of my cats, Safi, chewed a hole in this blanket at 10 o'clock the other night. I was too tired to think of anything more creative to do than to just chop off about 5 inches of this blanket, stick it back on the needles and bind it back off again. To be fair, this is kind of a sacrificial blanket. I put it on a chair just behind where the camera is at the moment. There's a little armchair, and I put it on there basically because I knew that there was a possibility that they might chew it. She did chew it a little bit when she was about 4 months old, but she hasn't touched it since. They're now 6 months old, and she decided to have a go at it. I don't know why. She did also have a little go at this end as well. You might notice that it kind of goes straight, straight, straight. That was where she chewed on the corner, and again, I couldn't be bothered to rip back the entire row, so I just ripped back to where I could get some intact stitches back on the needles and then just bound it off. Couldn't be bothered. It is a sacrificial one. I knew it was possibly going to get chewed up, and lo and behold it has. So there you go. Safi may have got called some rather choice names because I was less than impressed with her chewing behaviour, but there we go. Stuff happens sometimes, doesn't it? I just know not to leave them unattended with any knitting that I actually care about. Fortunately, this is not a blanket that I massively care about because it is so small that it's not even really that practical. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was I had a great reaction to my destashing videos. For those of you who haven't seen them, I did 2 videos that I edited and released last week, which were to do with destashing my commercial yarn collection. There was one video that was like a short, maybe 5-minute little tips and tricks video with some questions and stuff to ask yourself and some advice. And the other one was me going through my entire commercial yarn collection and getting rid of stuff and actually making those decisions kind of on the fly. When I shot that, I had no idea whether anybody was going to bother watching it, but you did. Lots of you did. And lots of you have given me comments and Instagram posts and private messages and all sorts of stuff recently to say thank you for doing that. So you are more than welcome. I'm glad it was useful for you. It was useful for me as well because it was kind of like the impetus to actually get that sorting process done. Most of it has now been rehomed, but there are still a few bits and bobs on my Ravelry sale or trade page, including that beautiful fibre space ethereal. I really want that to go to a good home, so if you think you might be the right home for it, let me know. And there are a few other bits and pieces on there as well. So if you're interested, go and have a little look on Ravelry. Unfortunately, I can only ship to the UK because it's just too expensive to get it anywhere else. But if you're in the UK and you're interested, let me know. 2 parcels went off this week to new owners, so I hope they have received them and they get to do something very cool with them. I think for me, destashing of anything is a really, really good, empowering thing. One of the messages that I had on Instagram was somebody saying that, you know, I now like opening up my yarn cupboard because I can see all of this awesome yarn and I can just think about all the happy, nice projects that it's going to be. That's kind of how I feel. It's kind of like thinning out the wheat from the chaff, isn't it? You know, you get rid of the things that you don't really love and you're left with things that you really love and that you're really excited to do something with. That really, for me, is the basis of all of this. So thank you so much for your reaction to that video. I hope it continues to be useful for people. And so there we have it. That's it for another episode of Tiny Fibre Studio. I hope this was useful. Please keep in mind, let me know any times of day which are generally good for you when it comes to YouTube Live. Also, make sure that you subscribe and that you have notifications turned on if you want to be part of that YouTube Live spin along. I hope I'll be able to record another episode before Edinburgh Yarn Festival, but if not, everybody who's going, enjoy it. Those of you who aren't, check out Instagram posts and stuff. I always used to get really jealous when people were at Edinburgh and I wasn't. I'd be scrolling through Instagram going, really want to be there. In between now and the next episode, you can find me on Instagram as Tiny Fibre Studio and on Ravelry, I'm Ibex. In the next episode, hopefully I will have finished my single spin and I will be casting on for my doodler. And in between now and the next episode, you can find me on Instagram as Tiny Fibre Studio and on Ravelry, I'm Ibex. So I hope that episode was useful. Hopefully there should be some more short videos coming out from me in the next couple of weeks. But in between now and the next episode, have a good time spinning, and I'll see you later.